of the organizational problems, Canada Council felt that we are producing company, not development company. So we had to re-emphasize all those things. And since for that time onwards, I argued that no, these things are integral. We can't produce if we don't develop. And if we don't develop and other people developed, they'll develop wrong things. And I'm very clear about it, that they'll develop wrong things. That's why we are talking about decolonization, because we need to talk about decolonization because we kept doing the colonization for the longest time. So it was very important that there is a linkage between the development and the production. It's very important that what is developed is not just a symbolic expression, but also substantial, also about class and gender and social relationship. So that was the foundation of that. And I think that I'm so glad that the Fireworks has come through a very long journey, and it has, and I'm amazingly pleased. I keep comparing, I must say that. It's not a good thing to compare, but I do compare what we developed in Fireworks versus whatever happened somewhere else. We do two things together, the writer and the work simultaneously. There is no separation between the two. So the symbolism is not there that we just, did one or the other. So that's what I need to say about the Fireworks. And I think that I will stop here. And I think that it is good to talk to rest of you, what you may have to say, what your experience is. What would you like to tell us we should be doing as we move on, open to the writers and to the dramaturgs? And I have to say a very strong word of thanks both to Lidi and Lib for leading this thing. And Lib has been my teacher in theater. She was talking about the diversity in 1977 when no one else was. So I said, well, this is the proper teacher for me. And maintain that relationship. Lidi is, I believe, a generation after me. So we are talking about entire generation of creators here. Yeah, so I thank you both. And of course, I already said my words of appreciation and admiration for Alessandra. So I'll stop here. So I open the floor to any of you who would like to speak.
I'd just like to say that I am very privileged to now also consider myself as a student of Lib, because for a whole year to be able to collaborate with you, Lib, it was, again, it's always a chance when you have to work in tandem with someone, and it was lovely. Like working with you is
absolutely. I had a lovely time as well. I feel I'm a student of yours, so it's a mutual exchange there. I think we're supposed to talk, and then we're going to leave it to the playwrights. So it was an amazing 9 months. I mentioned the 9 months to someone, and they said, it sounds like you're giving birth. And I went, no, I was the midwife. And I really think that's the role that Lidi and I got to play with these wonderful playwrights, that and it was so exciting. And I want to thank the four I worked with to see the development and the growth and your openness and also your clarity. I mean, it was great to be in a situation where I go, I think you should do this. No, this is the reason why. Oh, okay. That kind of exchange is so important and exciting, and it doesn't always happen. So I'd just like to thank Debdeep, Kiernan, Carolyn, and Heather for a wonderful 9 months and a wonderful multi-birth.
Multi-birth, yes. It's funny because I had the same chain of thought this morning of wondering. I know the work is supposed to be like, oh wow, yes, 9 months leading to a creation, but I feel like creation, yes, but they're also creatures. Like they're about to keep on growing and keep on changing and keep on developing, and yes, I feel like we've kind of midwifed these little creatures that are going to grow and become hopefully voices for your legacies and voices for what you want to include into this Canadian story. What is this space's story? And we're adding our voices to this. And I feel privileged that I was able to be part of this program with you. I feel like this is graduation day. I know it should be champagne, but sorry, I'm a mom, so it's going to be tea to celebrate. Yes, it's like my day started early, but I still have a lot to do. But I'm celebrating everything that was done in 9 months. Like, remember when we received all of, and we had to choose and we had to make that first contact. And I remember in August, like figuring out, are we meeting them before August? And now here we are in May, like almost June. And just the past 2 weeks, like the work that we started, once we started May and we knew that, okay, let's start the casting. All of you, I hope that you enjoyed the ride, but we've been into like casting and finding directors and making sure that your voices were carried the right way, and to like spy on you and to see, is there satisfaction? Are they happy? Checking on you. I feel like it was a real privilege to really be there with you and through this wonderful experience. Writing mentorships are always different one to another. So again, I appreciate the relationships that you allowed me to have with you, with your work. And yes, they're creatures. So I hope to be invited to the birthdays and the graduations of those stories. And no, I'm so proud, so proud. Are we supposed to like pass it on to someone? Because I really want to know exactly, how do you feel after all of this experience? Don't fight, children, don't fight.
Someone?
Caroline, you're muted.
So thanks so much for that, Liddy. And I just wanted to say it's been such a phenomenal experience these past 9 months, just to feel that sense of community and mutual support within the groups, and to share something and then just have it received and to have people think about it and reflect back their thoughts has been really special for me. And thank you, Liddy, and everyone for all the work and all the time that you put into this. Like, it's just been so great, you know, from the very beginning, and with the group meetings and the one-on-ones right up until, you know, the casting and the rehearsals and everything. And for me personally, like, I think Tisri Dunya did such an excellent job with casting and finding a director for my play. And I think, like, yeah, the casting was spot on. So thank you for that. That has been really wonderful. And yeah, it feels kind of surreal in a way that we're at the end. It feels kind of surreal that I wrote something and that it's going to be put out into the world, even if just for a brief period of time. But I'm very grateful for the time in this program and just to have met all of you and to see your work.
Liddy, you are muted.
Yeah, I keep mumbling little love words, but I'm just saying, so it was really wonderful working with you, Caroline. You really brought a lovely voice to exactly this very heavy environment that sometimes high school be like, and you add racism to high school, and you do it with such poetry, with such love, and And see now, if you open the door, I'm just going to like start raving about each one of these stories, but exactly like to discover your voice and to, like, I'm hoping for every one of you to find new avenues to keep developing and keep on pushing this beautiful story of yours. Yes.
Who's next?
I can go.
Yeah.
I'm just really grateful for the fact that this was a space to really reflect on. In my case, it was a little bit different. I wasn't pushing for a result or a final or first draft even. It was a very different process than what I had before. And I needed the time to reflect and to think and to grow and to heal. And now I feel ready to start, to be very honest. And I think I needed those 9 months. So I don't see this as an ending. I see this as a beginning. And I'm really grateful that this was a space, unlike others, where you feel the pressure to come up with something. I think that as artists, we actually need time to incubate sometimes too. And that's what I loved about this fireworks. I really needed the incubation. I needed the guidance from Liddy. And the conversations and the group meetings, and all of it was so invaluable and inspiring. And now I feel ready, if that makes sense. So marination is the key. Yes, Lib. Yeah, I've been marinating for 9 months, I feel like, and I am ready. I'm ready to go into the oven now.
And your voice is like already, like us, you're telling me that such wisdom is also like aware that they're marinating. Oh, yay, yay, Sangeeta, yay, yay.
Here's to marinating. Wow. Sangeeta, I echo everything you said, and also, Lidi, what you said about this creature that is coming into being and like coalescing. I'm like, we're still picking out clothes, we're like looking at schools, we're like, this is gonna be, like years into the future, we're starting to plan we're for this creature, this child's life. But just the chance to, because I think I went on maybe a similar journey to you, Sangeeta, in the sense of only now am I like, this is the thing, this is what it is. And now there's that journey, which has begun. And so it was really unique and wonderful to be in a space where maybe I got to like redefine myself as a creator or like as an artist in a different way. And I think maybe that was one of the biggest takeaways from the program. Especially writing about and exploring the things that we had talked about like biracial identity and mixed race identity, and like having the time to sit in that like sometimes super uncomfortable place was like one of the most valuable things, I think, from these 9 months. So thank you for that.
Who is next?
I just wanted to say that I get to humiliate you whenever I see you in public, Nathaniel. You are forever mine.
I think I'd want to bounce off what Nathaniel said, which is very much that thing of, I don't know, I felt my process was, speaking of the 9 months and kind of the baby comparison, it's very much has been that, and has been the thing of pushing, I guess, and having Liv as a midwife of very much being like, yeah, push, you can do it. Like, I believe in you. And I'm like, okay. And having the 9 months to also take a break and just kind of just and be in it, and sit in those uncomfortable places. And I think it's really been, having the 9 months has been such a blessing in a way that I can surprise myself in terms of like, because if it was 2 to 3 months, I'll just be like, okay, I'll do what I know and do what I do best. versus having 9 months where I can explore different places and very much emerge as redefine myself in different ways as a creator, of like figuring out little things that interest me and then following that and truly trusting the process of like pushing. And then, and I say push not necessarily in like a forceful way, but just in a trusting way of figuring out what naturally comes within me and then will come out. And then I also like what you said, Lydia, of exposing the baby. Like just like the baby is out. I think that's also something different within the term of versus being the performer, where you're like, all right, now it's time to be on the stage and expose myself, versus writing it where I have to hand the baby to the director and be like, all right, here's my child, and then watching the director kind of, I don't know, Lion King the baby to the audience, you know. Like, and then have all of now that my play has been presented to an audience and having people happily be like, oh my gosh, I like this and like this. I'm going on so many different tracks. Thank you so much for listening. But I also think something that has been really cool for me has been seeing how others can interpret the themes that I have presented, you know? And just even the points of like, oh my God, you got it. Like, like even small jokes that I put out that have different layers, and finding people dissect that in a way that I would have as an actor. Having other people do that with my work is the coolest thing ever. And I really appreciate that. And even within in our little team of trying to make sure that that has been an aspect that I wanted to go through, like us as a group with Carolyn and Heather and Deb Deep, kind of me talking about the things I wanted to talk about, and then having it finally work for people who have just approached my work. Yeah, I think that's something that I find really surprising, and I find really cool, and honestly proud of myself. Let's say that. Yeah. And I think all of us, definitely within our own individual stories of finding ourselves and finding what makes us proud, and then also finding what we want to talk about with to audiences and kind of challenge them with, is something that I'm really excited about, especially with all of the individual stories that I've had the privilege of being had the sharing with you guys. So yeah, thanks.
Yeah, and an amazing journey. I mean, from where you started and why we said yes, Tiernan, to the end result has been so exciting to watch. And just constant digging, changing, fixing, flowing. So it was wonderful, just wonderful. So.
Devdeep, you have to unmute yourself. Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, and bouncing off Tiernan. So I wanted to say that in terms of the program, it's so hard to believe that we have had 9 months. Time flew by so fast. But I wanted to say that like there were few things that really I took so much from this experience. The first thing was that this was the first time that I was trying to write in English. I had written plays before, but it was always in my mother tongue, Bengali. So I had to find that uh, voice and live. Thank you so much, because I remember the first few months you were feeling like think and maybe write in Bengali if you want to, but and also just among our small group of four, like I am so inspired by just discussing and hearing your stories, and like, oh wow, like you're interpreting this as this, like I could play with that, and like it has been such an exciting ride, and especially our reading at the end among the four of us, and then later in the reading week which was showcased, that was so nice to be just that invisible fly on the wall, and like just see how your words can really evolve and be interpreted in so many ways. It's so invigorating. So I'm so thankful and grateful for you.
And now you're going to finish it.
Summer, yeah.
Yes, great. No, it's been, again, watching the journey has been such an inspiring thing to see with everybody, but and the whole thing about language. What does it mean to write in a language that is not your mother tongue, in a culture that is not your culture? That has been very exciting to watch as well, and where the references meet and where they don't. So yeah, again, lovely.
I'll go. It's been 9 months. Wow. I came into Fireworks with the story already done. I came in thinking I just needed a little cleanup here and there. Just a bit. What a ride. What a ride it was. I mean, Liddy and Lib calls themselves the midwives, but I feel more because at this stage in my life, I felt that Lib was more of an arborist, a tree carer, because I have so many branches of creativity in other fields and other forms. But then all of a sudden I had this burning urge in me to write this story, and boop, on the tree trunk, a little nub kind of popped out as that story, and Lib took care of that branch of me, pruned it, trimmed it, watered it, and added pieces of other things to think about, made it a hybrid of me, and then it all became me in the end. My story, my wishes, cleaned up and was presented and accepted. And all at the same time, working with my colleagues, Heather, Tiernan, Debdeep, being so inspired by the stories, the little bits that I've heard during our development process, falling in love with one of Debdeep's character and praying to all the gods that may be that I become Pointy Hat in some future production. Please let that happen. Falling in love with Heather's story, and looking forward to hearing it, to what it will be, like another branch with all kinds of leaves popping out because life gave Heather food during these 9 months. Might not have been tasty, but it was food for thought. And this program respected that. And Tiernan, from a little coffee house story to boom, what the hell happened? Programs like this for people of color, for people who have been marginalized, for people who have been pushed aside because of race, age, whatever, there's not enough. And I feel that Fireworks needs to explode bigger in the future. I mean, I don't know, I'm seeing maybe branches of Fireworks everywhere. I mean, Debdeep's in India, I'm in Toronto, there's Montreal folks here. Like, get the world into Fireworks, get the writing happening, get the stories happening, because with all due respect, white ain't it. We've been fed white for a long, long time. There's a lot more of us out there. Thank you, Fireworks. Thank you, Raul. Thank you, Lib. Thank you, Liddy. Thank you, my colleagues.
This is wonderful, Caroline. I think that if I have to go back to you guys and say, well, can you just write a little report? I think I'm going to recruit you for that. But just want to make a couple of points. I think that Devdeep said that he wrote in a language other than English. Caroline points it out that she is in Toronto, Devdeep is in India. I think that this whole process of the decolonization, that is what it means, that the primacy of a language that has been a dominating language, a language of communication, it does not have to exclude other things. So to put words to the notion of the decolonization is to internalize the things that have been demarginalized, that have been marginalized. So, conceptually, we had started from that point of view and beginning to see the fruits of that, and the voices of minoritized communities and writers. They do not have to be. They have to be real, and they have to be treated as real. They do not have to be a sense of click the box, and therefore formality is met. So this is very, very integral. As I said in the beginning, there has to be a link between the creation, creator, and production. And because that is all those three things will eventually connect to the community. So that's very important through line that exists here.
Yeah. Thanks, Carolyn. That was quite gorgeous and so true. So thank you. Heather, do you have anything to say?
Yeah. Carolyn, you kind of made me emotional there because everything you said is true. This is not my first round of fireworks. I went through it before when it was, I think it was maybe 6 weeks. Raul, is that correct?
Yeah.
Before it was maybe 6 short sessions, and it kind of, refreshed what I knew before. It gave me the opportunity to focus on writing. And the irony of when I saw this again, I saw that it was this long gestation period, for going with that metaphor. I thought this was going to be perfect. The timing was perfect. Everything was great. I had this idea. I got paired with a former teacher of mine. I was like, this is going to be wonderful. And life served me one. Like, one thing after another, getting COVID really bad and the brain complications that come with it, to my dad being hospitalized and eventually dying. When writing this play was such a process that we were kind of doing together. Because when you're talking about decolonization, so much of my journey was working with my dad and getting ideas and pitching story, and he didn't get to see it. I mean, I didn't get to finish, but as hard as it's been, I will be forever grateful that Raul, Lib, Liddy, Teasery, that you guys have been so comforting to me, that you have given me the space and the time to finish. And I guess it's true, if we're looking with children as a metaphor, not every child develops at the same pace. Children are born and grow and meet milestones at different times, and that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm getting my feet back under me. I know I'm almost there in the grieving process, because in our culture, we even say that you shouldn't even cook or create something when you are of a negative headspace or in a bad mind, because that's what you put out into the world. And in dealing with the grief that comes from my father's death, I haven't been ready, but I know it's right there. And you guys have all been talking about marinate. Even though I haven't been actively writing, the stories come alive, the characters have come alive in my head. And that is just so much based on the inspiration that I've had from my cohort, like Carolyn, Tiernan, Deb Deep, like you guys have been my safe space to land in the last couple months, that even though I haven't been on the journey in the same rate you have been, you've always welcomed me back and let me join in that creative space. And you guys have brought me so much happiness and so much inspiration. You guys are like rock stars. I can't wait to catch up to you. Like, I'm the kid at the end of the race that I'm like, I'm still gonna make it. I swear I will. And I am just so honored to have been part of this process. And I'm not saying goodbye because I am not done yet. So this is my not quitting face. This is the, I've, jotting down notes, making the outlines. Like I've been taking in all the things you guys have been saying about the process, and I am excited to move forward, and I'm going to finish this. And I'm just thankful that you guys have given me the space to do it. And Raul, I know it's been almost 20 years. I swear I will get you a piece of my writing soon, I promise. So thank you.
That's perfectly fine, Heather. 20 years or 30 years, it's not going to change the fact that that relationship will continue. So I think that I will talk about it a little later, but the journey of the play from the point of creation to continue, and it reaches a stage where it's a publishable or assumed complete, is an important one. And that's our contribution to the literary wealth of this country. So that's going to happen. So therefore, none of the things at whatever stage they are will be lost or forgotten.
I just also wanted to celebrate the work of Shadia, who's not there. I know that their lives right now is quite a tornado, because again, exactly, the process is different for everybody, different rhythms. And because their script was picked up for the French, they are actually working a lot lately. So I'm not surprised that they're not able to maybe squeeze this conversation into their schedule. But again, just that was also an extraordinary addition to the cohort, to the family. And yes, celebrating all of the works, I really like what you said, Heather, like exactly, all the creatures will have different rhythms, different stories, and it makes it all balanced, that exactly we are breathing when we need to stop breathing, and we're moving forward with what we can move forward with. And that's how I feel like we've left no one behind, is that we know that we have all of the spectrums in it.
Yeah, I want to add to that, Heather, just the idea of we all bloom at different times like flowers, and the work is the work. It doesn't necessarily have to be pen on paper. It's the work of the last 9 months. I was in a similar situation to you, just needing to marinate, and that's the work. That's redefining the artist. That's finding your artist is most important.
I just want to say one more thing about, you said finding the artist, and I think that has been a really valuable process in this whole thing. I know, Raul, you talked about decolonization and giving space to Indigenous writers and creators, which is something I will be forever thankful for. And what I noticed that is different now from when, the world that existed 20 years ago when I met you, is that my cohort and Lib, whenever I kind of was like, ooh, is this too forward? Should I not be going in this position? Everyone was like, no, keep going. Because, when I talk about colonization and the role of like the settler mindset and the Indigenous perspective, that you guys have all just like, go for it. Just go for it. Whereas maybe even 5, 10, 20 years ago when I first wanted to write was not that supportive place. So in terms of like empowering me to be able to just take space and have a voice to add to this conversation has been so incredibly motivating, because I feel like the world right now, like Carolyn, like you said, that there should be fireworks everywhere. I feel there is a demand, there is an audience for all of these voices that have never had an opportunity. We know that there are audiences, we know that there are people who are ready and waiting and listening, and our time is here, and we've all in our own ways are paving our own little ways for the future. And I think that's what has been so amazing about this fireworks journey. So thank you to everyone who's told me to just go for it. The world is going to be a better place for all of us and all of our stories because of it. So thank you.
I do want to acknowledge, because when we laid down the foundation of the fireworks way back, there were some of my colleagues were involved in conceptualizing it, and two of them were dramaturg Shelley Tepperman and Kapil Baba. So it was Shelley Tepperman to whom I was talking about, this is I wish to do, this is what I wish to do. And I mean, I was at the time relatively new in the field, so desires were a lot more than achievement. And Shelley heard all that, and she says, I think you're talking about making sparks. So she gave a global title called Making Sparks, and divided the Making Sparks into several segments: generator and fireworks and a few other things, and of which the generator was for the very young writers, those who were starting from the scratch, and the fireworks was what it is. Over time, I said that this idea of the generator, to leave that out, just work on a fireworks, because it was creating some kind of a stratification. So we lived with that idea. So I do want to acknowledge that the Shelley Tepperman had a major role in conceptualizing it. And Heather, to your point about the decolonization, I emphasize this very deeply, because I've been doing this ever since I started in the field of theater as an outsider with little knowledge. The whole notion of the Canadian experience, that was a kind of a obstacle for me, because experience of somebody graduating from the university with no other practical experience other than organizing a beer bash was okay. But you have came with every other knowledge of cultural experience, creative experience, and that was not good enough because it was not Eurocentric. So those terminologies had to become very strong. And my colleagues and me, others also, Rana Bose, for example, we pushed those words into conversation very, very hard. And I continue to say that at the time, 30 years of the struggle of the diversity, inclusion, and equity, it will be lost if we did not understand how it fits and how it connects to the notion of the decolonization. Because colonization, when it happened, it erases culture. And so it is important to restore that culture, was erased. And therefore, the colonization is important for me. And the notion of reading the acknowledgement that we are sharing this land, well, let's be honest, you're not sharing, you've occupied it. So therefore, I just don't go into those trivialities. But it is important, because every time we acknowledge, we also have to acknowledge me as an immigrant, as an immigrant settler, more legal than settler. So I have certain privileges, and the settlers have certain more privileges. But those who must have those privileges are sharing it, and do not have that privileges. So it is therefore the decolonization is very important. It does not have to be this the terminology. It has to be the equalization of the power relationship and then sharing. But in an absence of power relationship, sharing is a management that is very capitalist. It has no place in reality. I'm done.
Yeah, no, I think we're so lucky that Tisserie exists and that Fireworks exists. And let's hope it keeps continuing. And like Carolyn says, it spreads. One of the things about it that I really think is important to acknowledge is the fact that we had the readings, that we had the 8 hours of workshop and the recordings and the readings at whatever stage people were at, to hear, and the level of skill from the actors and the directors was just wonderful. And it's such an important part of this process that you get to hear. It may not be everything you've written, but you get to hear in front of an audience what you've written, because that, of course, is theater. It's not what I'm reading in my head. It's what the director and the actors, their understanding of your work, right? It's sort of like giving your kid to the daycare teacher to keep the metaphor going, and then slowly it goes on up to high school and then it's college, right? But it was so great to sit there and hear wonderful professional actors take those words and make them alive as a piece of theater, even if it was on Zoom. It really, so, you know, thank you, Raul. Thank you, Al. Thank you, Tisserie Dunia, for that.
I think that's a special credit to Alessandra again, because she did most of the casting.
Yes.
And the casting was what we describe as, we are not believer of so-called colorblind casting, because there is no such thing as a colorblind casting. You see colors, so you're not blind to it. Because colorblind casting is actually a device by which, in the name of quality, the work is taken away from the people whose stories are being told. So as you can see, stories like Miss Saigon and that, which are problematic at many, many levels, including the expression by the American imperialism of how they treat the Asian people, particularly Asian women. There was no, the story was bad. All those mega musicals were bad, but what was worse is that the major role were given to white folks. Why? So the same way, sometimes when the play is written, such as Scorched by Mr. Wajdi Mawad, one of the finest playwrights I have seen, Richard Rose cast and takes the Arab actors out of the thing. So I'm gone public naming that the people who have done the bad casting. Alessandra, on the other hand, had a perfect casting. It's a totally intercultural casting. It represented race, color, gender, experience,
age,
everything. That is what decolonization is. This is how we need to, in practical sense, represent. So I think that there was a wonderful representation of Tisserie's idea of color conscious casting as put by Alessandra in the casting practice. So thanks to her. And we took more actors. We did not want to have the same actors playing in every play. So the cohort was not 8 actors doing 40 characters, but we had 40 actors doing 40 characters.
And just to that, Tisri, thank you for actually doing what you said you were going to do, which was to respect those needs for each one of these playwrights. Because you take a contract and you're like, okay. And then, but when it was time, like, we were always supported. Al, if you knew everybody, like when I said we were, that's not me. That's me looking at all the Excel sheets that Al is putting together, all the suggestions, all the data that we're like, okay, here are the emails that I received from my cohort, but the coordination that Al has put together. So that praises to that, praises to exactly, we need more companies that are willing to go the distance, willing to work with our cast, and yeah, that maybe it's not going to be just 10 actors to cover all 7 plays. Maybe it's going to require 40 actors to like really speak to all of these different voices. And we were actually able to do that, which means that we made actors work. We made a lot of actors finally embody things that they wanted to embody for a long time, and we didn't take that experience away from them because of ABC. And by the way, when I keep saying that when Raul came to Concordia, that was kind of what he was saying, not exactly what he just said, but that was one of those things that he was saying. I was like sitting in the class going, whoa, I need to speak to this man, because yeah, they keep telling us about like, oh no, blind casting, we don't see color, but I felt so seen when you go to universities and you go to classrooms and drama class schools and you tell them that, no, it's wrong when you try to delete us and just erase us and make this all, oh, it's all happy. And there are students who sit in those classrooms who go like, I don't know why, but I feel like this company I will trust. And I am happy that my journey is leading me to here, where exactly we were able to do this. We were able to give voice to all of this. And I remember another thing in Concordia that I remember, I'm naming the university, but when they tell us about how it's so complicated to tell a Canadian story and how Canadian theater does not seem to like Canadian stories, that it was actually kind of a revolution in to write, like to have a theater that only makes Canadian plays is kind of a revolution in Canada, which is kind of strange, but in a way, kind of like, but maybe that's the best way of ignoring what the real tapestry of Canada is. Maybe it's easy to not write Canadian stories, because if you have to write Canadian stories, you have to talk about a lot of things. You have to unpack. We have questions, and that was exciting. It was exciting to give voice to the real tapestry of Canada and to have some real conversations. I'm excited for the last conversation we're about to have. It's so yes, maybe that's why I think it's very interesting that if it's so hard to create Canadian stories, well, apparently, I hope we have more fireworks to bring more of these stories. Because like I think Caroline Faye said, there are a lot more of us. There are lots.
And to that, I want to add my rant, which is about marination, which is one of the best things about this whole thing, was that we had 9 months, not 6 weeks, not 10 weeks. And that so much of Canadian theater is not as good as it could be because there isn't enough money to pay for the time that we really need. And we need to completely alter Canadian theater culture so that we all have the time to create the way we want to create, instead of being under the gun all the time. And it's how English Canada sees how you create theater. 2 months production week, you're on for 2 weeks and it's over. Anyway, that's my rant. And one of the joys of this particular experience was, thank you, Raul, for giving us 9 months. And for all of us to know it's not finished yet.
Well, I think that we're coming to almost the close. So I want to say something to all of you, to the playwrights, that continue to develop your scripts, because eventually one of the things that we need to do is to fill the literary shelf of this country with the works that is being created. It does not have to be published by Playwrights Press of Canada or Talon Press and all that. There are multiple ways by which it should live on the shelves, so that and I promise that I will find ways to do this. Playwrights Guild of Canada is already headed in that direction. So certain conditions that are associated to the literary work, that the play has to be produced before it gets published, or it has to go through a certain process before it can be anthologized. No, this is going to represent the intellectual input of the people who have been otherwise marginalized, and we have to find a way to take their work on the shelves no matter what. So that will happen.
Thank you, Raul.
Thank you. I think that Maheen has to come in to close the session, I guess. Maheen, are you there?
Yes, I am. So yeah, that was such a beautiful discussion to listen to. If you guys are okay with it, I'll stop the live right now, and maybe you can have a few more closing words to ourselves. So, okay, I'll close the live right now. Thank you to everyone who was watching on YouTube.